my musical journey, I started off with poetry, and then, you know, at the same time doing singing and stuff, and it kind of just intertwined. Like, there wasn't a moment where I was like, okay, this is a poem and this is a song. It just kind of, I could turn a song into a poem, I could turn a poem into a song. I've read poems as songs, I've read songs as poems, you know, I've done both. And I think especially with this song, I feel like there was I don't know, there was kind of like a spoken word aspect to it that I really wanted to get across. I didn't want it to be just something to sing and just too metaphorical. I wanted it to be like to tell a story and to kind of go for a journey. And yeah, that's how I've always written, is kind of distinguishing between the two.
Hello, I'm Thomas Cam, and this is Making Tracks podcast, where I explore the life story behind a song with the artist that wrote it. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the meaning of music. Today I'm speaking to Anusha about her track, Someone I Never Wanted. Now, Anusha's music combines her background as a classical vocalist and in poetry, and finds that hip-hop is a kind of meeting place to amalgamate her myriad influences, which we discuss. And this background in classical training and poetry is something that I also share. We also find the similarity that we write songs to make sense of difficult experiences, and she'll talk about those difficult experiences. And the other thing to note about this conversation is that due to technical issues, we lost the whole first version. So what you're hearing is the second version. But I like to think that we improved in this time. So this is Anusha.
I think Someone I Never Wanted started off as a single because I got very ill this time last year. Funny enough, almost to the day that we're recording this. And I was in my bed, so I was bedridden, couldn't get up, I couldn't even brush my teeth. Like, it was really, really bad. It wasn't COVID, funny enough, it was just something else that I still don't know what it was. And I was just reflecting over the year before, because obviously we were at the start of the pandemic and everything was just, uncertain, unsure. And then I kind of was reflecting over, like, all the what ifs, like, you know, I've never dated anybody, I've never had anything. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this pandemic's happened and I've never had, like, a dating experience, kind of things like that. And I was just looking over all the things I've never done. Again, I wanted to do music, but I was going to release a single in 2020. Didn't happen because of the pandemic. Was going to, short version of this, I run a collective to basically let other musicians do performances and stuff. Couldn't happen because of the pandemic. And it was just like all these like things that never happened. I was just like, ugh. And then I sat down and I basically discovered this app called Hook Theory, and you can just basically put in chords and it plays a song back to you. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, having fun, in bed, can't move, couldn't even get the piano out. And I put in like C and something else, C and F, I think. And I literally just made the song. And I was like, okay. And it's from a really terrible, can I swear?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
It's from a very shitty uni experience that I had, which basically, again, so many stories. Again, I've never really dated anybody, and it was sad because the only uni experience I remember was when this teacher started coming on to me. And I was oh shit, like, and again, it ended fine. He's a dickhead. I've called him out before, like, and yeah, but I was like, this is the only intimate experience I've had at that time in 2020. I was like, let me write a song about it. And this is this is kind of just all the process of that whole thing, because it was started in 2016 and I stopped seeing him. I finished uni in 2019, and through that whole experience I was just like, you know, there was lyrics about me dancing and him just kind of perving on me, and then me thinking like, oh, this is fun, and then you get older, you're like, oh, like that was shit. And that's how this story came about, and I'm proud of it because I wrote it in a pandemic. I wrote it when I was ill. I wrote it from a very shitty experience, and I was able to find people to actually, I was able to find people to help me like release it. You know, I had my friend Maz, who I love Maz to bits, who basically was the first person I showed it to, and she was like, Anusha, you need to release this. Like, this, you have to release this. Found a producer, and then I found someone to do the artwork, and it was like only us 3 people, and 4 if you're including Maz. And that is just how the single came about. And I'm just, again, without the lack of resources and the lack of everything, and I've come to this. I've come to here. I've gotten here, you know? And a year to the day.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And that story of it coming from a place of difficulty is something that I can relate massively to. I'm sure many people, many musicians can. I guess particularly in my case, I've been ill and in isolation for quite a lot of the last 4 years or so, and I've written music that is about that. And for me, actually, as I was going through those experiences, by giving meaning and creating art out of those experiences, it actually made it easier to go through at the time.
Yeah, it's almost like a bit of a solace, right? Like, you just kind of feel like it's kind of just a way to escape, a way to get out, but also just a way to acknowledge, for me anyway, it just kind of was acknowledgement of the situation. Like, okay, this happened. You know, it gave me a bit more understanding because, you know, you want a song to make sense. You're just looking at it like, what? But yeah, no, I completely get that. And I think also just being ill and like the way that illness has kind of gotten more complicated and weirder in the past year or so is, yeah, I think I'm proud of us as musicians for actually for even just trying to getting to this point, because not many people can say that, you know.
It's for me, I think it not only helped during but afterwards, because so much of what makes things difficult is not just their effects at the time. Like you said, the experience, actually a lot of what made it bad was your realization later of how it affected your mindset. And I think that's actually almost when art becomes most powerful, to take back control of that narrative, to give it a sense of meaning, to bring it out from yourself. And I know that I wrote a song, I had leukemia, and so I had this very, very mixed experience where on the one hand I had an experience of surrendering to death, and that being a very profound experience taught me a lot. It was a very spiritual experience. And so coming out of that, I feel kind of liberated from that fear in some ways. But I had this feeling of weight that I hadn't even noticed, and I wrote this song called "Please Don't Take Me Home," and it's basically about how I'm not afraid of dying, like, indirectly. Like, I'm at peace with, and actually quite like the fact that I'll disappear and so on, but I still don't want to die now. And I'd never realized that until the moment I started writing that song. I'd never realized that feeling. And actually, I think that music has this power to elucidate and untangle the complex web of feelings that we have, you know?
That's it. I completely agree. And I think, when I was, because I had it's amazing how illness gets you. I had the exact same thing. Because again, last year during the pandemic, I just stopped breathing. And I was just like, oh, okay. And that's how I was ill. Which I don't know how the hell I was singing in bed while I was breathless, but whatever. But I had the same thing. It was the thing of like, you know, and especially because I'm very close to my family, but it was the one time I was not with them. And I was like, if I go now, I have all these experiences and I have no one to tell them to, if that makes any sense. Like, I got, you know, because it was a huge, I'm downplaying a little bit, but the 2019 to 2020, it was harsh, you know, the way that I didn't really have anyone in my corner either. So it was really just me against because it was a university thing. It was me against the university saying this guy was being sexually harassing and whatever. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was horrible. it was horrible. Like, and I think, I was telling myself I was fine, but then I think writing this song out, I was like, I really wasn't, And then again, because I didn't know if I was going to make it through the month, make it through the year, because it just seemed to be getting worse. It still is getting worse. I've still got it. I was just kind of, again, I wanted someone to hear my story. Like, if one person heard the song and was like, oh, she felt really rubbish about this situation, that was me at peace. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not even on that kind of, legacy type thing. None of that, because I don't really believe in that. But it was more, I just kind of wanted to be understood. And like, one of my huge things as a person is I really don't like being misunderstood. Like, I don't care what you think of me, but just understand my point of view and where I'm coming from. And I think that there was a sense of urgency in writing this song of like, I need to get this song out, this story out, because no one really knows about it. No one really knows about what one and all my life. I have so many life stories. Like, I have so many weird things that have happened to me. And I was just like, all just happened around me. And I would love to, like, that's why I love music. Because I like being able to write it down, untangling it, like me dealing with, again, the idea of I could die at any point right now. Because it turns out that it was basically, I had like a mini stroke last year. And it was, but because it wasn't so, and this is like the repercussions of it. And this is going to say it's all the other bits of my body. And yeah, to be able to even just talk about that in music as well and things like that. I liked to document. It's almost music has become my diary, and I like to document everything that's going on. And it felt urgent. Like, I felt like I had to get this song out now. I have to tell people what was going on.
That is really, I think that's really powerful, and B, quite apparent in I think listening to it, that there is that energy and that urgency. Diary wise, in order to record experiences and periods of time, I actually create a playlist, and I find that I have a kind of oral with an AU memory, and so I hear a certain song in a context and it reminds me of a place. So it's almost, there's a reversal there as a songwriter to leave an impression of a sound and lyric impression of a place that you're in.
100%. Like, yeah. And I think I've definitely had trouble with keeping a written diary. Like, I'm not I've tried so many times, it just doesn't work. It's not for me. I'm more of a lyric writer, more of a, all right, I'm peed off, writing things on my phone. That's kind of my cup of tea. But like you said, I think definitely with music, I'm realizing that it's actually just like a place and time. Like, you're literally documenting an experience and like a feeling, and it's amazing how music can do that. Like, some of my favorite songs, when I hear the background of those, I'm like, you could really hear that. You could really hear like what people were going through. So I'm honestly so proud of this song. Like, if I were to make nothing else, I'm glad this song is out, or going to be out soon, because it came out, I did it against all odds.
Unfortunately, due to YouTube's copyright restrictions, I can't play the full track here, but there is a link to the YouTube video of the song in the description. If you'd like to listen to the full episode uninterrupted next time, you can do so on the website or on all podcast platforms, and there are links to those in the description. Hopefully, you've now had time to listen to the song, so let's get back to the conversation. My favourite moment in the song is that first hit of the self-harmonies when they come in. I just think it's got such an impact, and it's kind of, it's almost like, do you know the vocoder? Have you come across the vocoder?
Oh, many a time.
Good. Well, it's got that vibe where the kind of, if people haven't heard of a vocoder, it's a keyboard, but you sing through into it, but then you play the notes on the keys, and it kind of splits the voice into those sounds. That's how I would vaguely describe it. You maybe can describe it better.
I mean, it's giving. If the best way I would describe it is just think of Stevie Wonder.
Okay.
And I think, especially when Fred was making this track, that was kind of the vibe we were going for. We had like 15, God knows how many split vocals. And then it became a challenge though, because it went from, okay, how do we want this? Because the song is so raw, we didn't want it to be kind of like too structured and like too augmented. You didn't want it to be like too robotic, too whatever.
Overproduced.
Exactly. That's the word I'm looking for. Whereas at the same time, that the production of the song makes it eerie. Like that was kind of what I was going for. Like, this is a song and it's quite raw and intimate, but there's something off about it. Kind of describing like the whole situation was, you know, it was what I was talking about before, is that the whole situation was off. You know, if you stripped away the production of it, you would get a song that was, raw, authentic, but the message wouldn't be as meaningful, I don't think. Whereas, like, I think when you add some of, like you said, the vocal layering, like that kind of vocoder sort of, instrumentation to it, and, you know, the elves in the background, like the, you know.
Yeah, you mentioned before that you'd put elf voices.
Yes.
What was it? Like a kind of...
Yeah, the elf harmony. Yeah, elf orchestra.
Harmonies,
yeah. Elf harmonies in the background. All of that. Without any of that, you know, it wouldn't... It would just kind of be your bog standard song about a relationship breakdown that, you know, it had its ups and downs, which is a bit weird, you know. Whereas when you add
90% of music, which is about, oh god, so much music is about that kind of, I love you but I can't be with you, don't want to be with you anymore.
Exactly.
You know?
Like, maybe I was thinking too much of the relationship, where this, and it's not to say my song's any different, it's just to say that, like, the way that the production just twists it a little bit, it's almost like twisting a knife a little bit. Like, yeah, this is weird, but here's another layer to it, and like this, there's something off about it, and you may catch it, you may not. And I think that's what Fred really, the balance of the production, he did really well. Like, the kind of, okay, this is odd, but let's run with it, you know. And yeah, that's why I think someone I never wanted, God, I forgot the name of my own song, kind of works, because it's not just a relationship breakdown, it's essentially something was off, you know, something was weird, you know.
It definitely does bring I think eerie quality. That's a really, because also ethereal is one of the words that came to mind.
Yeah.
And there's some kind of connection there.
I definitely agree. I 100% agree. And like, yeah, that was kind of the vibe I was going for. Like, because I think, like, my style as an artist is very ethereal, very much just like majestic, and, you know, I'll go to town in my leather gloves, why not? You know, that's kind of just who I am as a being.
Do you think that's a reflection of your personality as well?
100%. 100. I think even just the way that I am as a person, yeah, just it's coming across in the song, definitely. And like, when I was talking to Fred, and like I was saying, he very much got my vibe as a person, rather than just be a producer that just, okay, what do you want, kind of paint by numbers, or I found these sounds, these sound cool. He kind of got to know me as a person. He got to know me as a not as Anusha as a producer or as a musician. He got to know Anusha, the person. And I think he did a very good job of still showcasing my, like, vocal chops, so to speak, but at the same time, okay, this is what Anusha's like, you know. I think this is probably one of the first songs I've written where I'm like, this is an Anusha song, you know. And I think that's very rare, even, you know, to even get a song where I could be like, that's Anusha, you know. He's very, and that's down to Fred and his music mastery. Mastery? Is that, no, whatever. Mastery. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think also to have a vision in one's head. We talked earlier about how you write and how I write. So there's two ways of writing: lyrics into music, and then music into lyrics. And the way that I tend to, if I'm incepting from the music and the song, I will have a sound in my head or a kind of a full song, and I'll just be able to hear it. And there are times in my life of feverish activity when I just hear orchestral arrangements in my head all the time.
Love it.
And there's this kind of almost there's this frustration of trying to kind of birth it into the world. And that is something that to work with the producer to do that and tease those things out and give them a physical
this kind of
form.
A prosody. Yeah, there's certain sort of prosody in the song that I think that is unmatched. Like that again, the chords are very simple. It's very just in the background. Like the instrument, it's more of a soundscape rather than just like a song. And I think that was very important when writing this, because I didn't want it to be kind of like just I don't even say your average song, but just a song that just was very much, okay, here's a song, here's that. I wanted to really kind of think about the whole. Yeah.
And in your case, this did come from lyrics into music, the kind of other method of writing.
Exactly. Well, like, yeah, it came from a poem, because I used to write poetry, which I don't really do anymore, which is quite sad actually. I wish I might start getting back into that. But yeah, no, this came from poetry. This came from
I find that I write one or the other. I'm either writing lyrics or I'm writing poetry.
Do you know what? See, that's funny. It's always been the same for me. Like, I could look at a poem I wrote ages ago and flip it into a song quite quick. Like, I see them as quite the same, but I think it's because my musical journey, I started off with poetry, and then, you know, at the same time doing singing and stuff, and it kind of just intertwined. Like, there wasn't a moment where I was like, okay, this is a poem and this is a song. It just kind of, I could turn a song into a poem, I could turn a poem into a song. I've read poems as songs, I've read songs as poems, you know, I've done both. And I think especially with this song, I feel like there was a I don't know, there was kind of like a spoken word aspect to it that I really wanted to get across. I didn't want it to be just something to sing and just too metaphorical. I wanted it to be like to tell a story and to kind of go through a journey. And yeah, that's how I've always written, is kind of distinguishing between the two.
Yeah, I think that there's something definitely at the heart of your music and my music. It's very interesting, the parallels that we found in terms of bringing together pairs of opposites. And I mean, I've been experimenting a lot with spoken word, and I actually have been starting to start my songs, introducing them by just reading a section from the thing. And I have, for example, one of the songs that I try and start the set with is called Between the Lines, and the first line is count the stars and don't forget the light that hasn't got here yet. And I just speak that, and then as it unfolds, I just speak the lines, and then I gradually start to bring in the piano bits that accompany those lyrics. And I find that that's something that really engages people's attention, because it's unusual, it's surprising, and there's nothing like something to cut through a pub noise or busking, to cut through that noise of a single solo voice. And particularly whether that's a cappella singing, also I find very effective. But yeah, that cuts through for me. That really speaks to me.
No, I hear you. And I think, again, it's something a bit different in the sense that it's almost like an introduction. Like, this is like a peep into my soul before, you just start singing about what you want to sing about.
We talked earlier about fusing opposites in a musical sense, and you've got classical in there, and you've got your poetry. What other opposites, what other kind of strange things are you bringing together into the alchemy of your music? I mean,
definitely hip hop, 100%. I think, again, I have a mother who is a hip hop head. And she likes she's not even a hip hop head in the sense of she likes 90s hip hop. She sometimes will go back to the 80s classical. She's a purist in the truest sense.
Grandmaster Flash.
Oh God, she's just the absolute purist when it comes to music. She doesn't like this new shit now. Nah, she likes that stuff back in the day. But I honestly will say that the craft of hip hop and the way that some things are structured, and I think what I love about hip hop is its simplicity. And I think a lot of my songs, because I was saying to you earlier, is that like sometimes having too many things at once, especially with classical music, and I the way that I study classical music, I did theory first and then the singing came after. And that, whenever I make music, that is what I'm always battling with, is that there's so much theory in my head. I'm thinking of the bass, I'm thinking of, you know, improvisation notes, or like kind of all these other things that just don't really matter at the time when I'm writing. But I think what always grounds me is sometimes is kind of hip hop and the sampling and some of the beauty that can come from that. You know, some of my favorite songs have just come from a very simple loop, you know, and a very simple concept even. And I think another thing I'm actually loving is that like a lot of hip hop songs have concepts and like overarching ideas. With Someone I Never Wanted, I wanted to have an overarching theme, the eeriness, the kind of the sampling, the song, the bits that go backwards, the bits that come forth to you, and all that sort of stuff. I wanted it to have that overarching thing rather than it just being a song. And that is kind of something that I always strive to do, which why sometimes things take so long when I'm trying to write things.
But it seems, in that sense, then it seems like hip hop is the perfect placeholder template to hold that amalgam of influences and styles, right? To kind of mash these things together.
Yeah, it is.
To elegantly mash them together.
Yeah, it's 100%. It's kind of, it's that glue. It's that glue and it's amazing because hip hop has inspired so many. You know, one of my favorite.
And it's interesting that it's become so mainstream. It's such a specific thing from a very specific time and place, and it's huge now. Even pop music's so influenced by hip hop.
It's so, and again, you hear it in everything now. Like even when you hear like your country songs, your punk songs, there's some sort of hip hop influence in it, and I find that absolutely amazing.
It's play. It's play. You know, we play music, and we play with music, and we recapture that childish instinct to simply allow, like there's no purpose to playing when you're playing tag, right? You are trying to get, there's like a game that you're kind of fulfilling, and there's rules and so on, but there's no ultimate purpose to it. And I think perhaps with music it's easy, particularly us as high concept thinkers and people, to think that music needs to have a purpose, and it can do, but you know, that it can allow us to have a playful space in which to just create and and
I love when you say there's quite a few of my friends who are abolitionists, and they talk about the idea of play and like how that we actually should prioritize that in our day-to-day lives, but also in music, like not having music to be this thing, and just sometimes just play. Sometimes let's just play around, have fun, you know, get this thing done. And that's something that is so awesome and so cool. Is that and
probably quite opposed to your training, right? You came from an environment of grades, so grades are literally, you're treating music like an exam. I did the same. You know, I went all the way through the grade system, and
me too,
so this finding this play from this must have been a bit of a journey to come out of that.
It was, and I think that was why I always try to prioritize that whenever I make music. Is like when I feel myself getting too bogged down in theory, I just think, okay, do something fucking weird. And like that's kind of where the weirdness comes. Like do something fucking strange, and it will all kind of manifest. Like with this song, perfect example. Oh my gosh, you know, it was obviously the song had a serious matter, and it was very much I wanted to say something, but then I was just getting too bogged down in like the little things. Like I want this harmony to be here, I want it to be the 5th and the 7th and the 8th and the 3rd and all this kind of stuff. I was like, and that's how we came up with the elves. We're like, okay, rest time. We're gonna add a harmony of elves in the background. I want to do
the structure. The structures have a purpose, but the structure is only there to capture and form the essence, and the essence is the music and the experience. I mean, there is a beauty to beautiful structures, but you think about Picasso as the example that came to mind. You know, his very early stuff, he's clearly very technically able, but I can imagine him sitting there and going, right, now I'm going to make it weird. And you know, but it gives you something to you need to have that thing to strip back from. And we used the analogy earlier of a strainer or a sieve, this kind of wiry mesh But yeah, that structure, I think. So with classical, you have a very, very fine mesh, because all these strands of ideas and these strands of absolute kind of things crisscross, so that you can sometimes, ideally, it will create a very pure, refined thing that's been refined over centuries to make the most beautiful, making sense thing. But it can be, it can just prevent the flow of creativity completely. And sometimes you if you lose touch with the essence of it pouring through, then that can be a problem.
Exactly. And I think that's where that is where you separate like certain musicians from others, is that it's when people get so rigid into not even numbers, but with so much of, okay, it has to be like this, and I think I spent so many, younger than 18, maybe even younger than 21, everything has to be like this. No, you can't. Even if you, when I did something weird in like my production for music, like I would do very weird things in my productions, and my production teacher, as much as I loved him at the time, he would be like, well, why, you have to justify it, because obviously, like you said, modules, you have to fit a structure. And I think the thing I didn't like about university is that they would try and just, here is a style of music that I think sounds great for you, do that. It was just, I think I found it hard to find grounding, as in, like, I didn't know how much of my, like, I didn't realize they could all coexist. I was like, wait, so do I just show off my vocal drop, like my classical chops, like, yes, I can hit high C's, do I just do that? Or do I just bun all that and just start singing R&B? And I think, if we're getting into that, the race gets into that, because being one of the only black girls in the course, it was very much like, well, you sing R&B, well, you sing soul. I was like, no. Like, and I think that is something, that was something that was really hard. But yeah, trying to find where they all could, not realizing that they could all come and exist within each other, and they could all make an appearance. Like, I might do more vocal harmonies in my next song. I might, like, I know one of my next singles, I've stripped it all back and I'm basically talking, but it's more about the production with that song. And it's just like, it's actually just finding where your balances are. Whereas I think with music uni, I found it hard to really find a place, and how am I going to fuse this together? How am I going to do this? And yeah, that was, I think, as much as I don't regret going to music uni, because it got me here and it made me think outside. Like, because I was put in a box so much, I was like, I'm going to be a circle. Stuff you lot. I'm going to be a triangle. You all suck. And that, it made me think outside the box in that sense. And that's what I was doing with this song I wrote called Suffer For You, which I basically take this very kind of, instead of it being a fuckboy point of view, I did a fuck girl kind of point of view. Gosh. And it was interesting because he was very much, as I said, I was playing around, I was having fun. And he was like, but why? I was like, can I just be? And it was very weird, but I guess but then I think sometimes where you don't have to justify it, where you can just do the thing, Sometimes you do it.
People like us, I think, and we're both very cerebral, interested in meaning and purpose and asking why, and that I'm sure that, people who, there are many people like that, and perhaps you can relate to this relentless desire to learn, and that's beautiful, and explain and understand. And we live in a society that is all about learning, explaining, elucidation, but there's a value to just saying, because, why?
Just because
the purpose is not the point. The purpose is not the point. The play is the point. Play is pointless, but that isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sometimes it's a beautiful thing. There are so many weird things in the song that I can't explain. There's no reason there's L's in the song. Like, there's just because there are. There's actually, as much as I said there's emotion with the harmonies, it came as us fucking around. We're like, we have the bass of the song. All right, see what else we can do with it. Like, all right, can he? And he, again, I hate harmonies, can't stand them. But he was like, all right, I'm gonna give you 15 harmonies. Go, do it. I was like, and we were there till God knows what time. Like maybe 10 p.m. Just like messing around with harmonies. Messing around with what we could do, because sometimes just because you might not use it, you might do. That's just it.
I mean, life is we on a much larger macro scale. We have begun to see life in terms of a series of points and purposes and lines and objectives, with this kind of strange this strange illusion or sense that these are all abstractions from a single point. Life is teleological to some kind of success, and particularly I'm thinking of school, right? Everything is graded, gradated. There are stages, and then you get into life and you reach a certain level, and it's like a video game. There's a point to get to, but unlike a video game, which is a curated narrative, there is no point. Ultimately, there's no point, and I don't understand. I mean, I don't really understand why it is that we feel so compulsively a need to reduce our experiences into
Points,
objectives, and into.
Well, I guess it's because, in a way, the points, like the way that we've been conditioned, is that those points unfortunately have value in a capitalistic society, whereas, like, so for example, when people say things like, "Oh, I've got a new job," and it's like very simple point. He's not saying that you can't be happy that you've got a new job, but because that gives you some sort of, not even economic capital, because you've got money, but also social capital. Status, social capital. And it's like, and capital. It's the same with, it gives you cultural capital. You're part of a culture.
And social media is the epitome of this, because literally you are reducing social capital into likes, into values, numbers, and it's a reductionist thing of, see, this almost gratuitous thing of how much can we reduce number in life into data, into screens and numbers, and the more you do that, the more filters and meshes you introduce, the more wire strings to filter life, the more you strain out the essential water that's coming through, the goodness, right?
That's it. And I think the way I've used social media as well is to sometimes say fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally you're reducing it into points, that word again, but in a different sense. We talked about you create artificial points of objectives. You create a points system. Yeah. And I think we're obsessed with all these little points, and then you have data points. You have these different ways of turning life into dots, ones and zeros, dots. But I think for me, why do we look to create these artificial points? I think it's because the nature of modern life feels pointless, and not in the way that play feels pointless, in the way that meaninglessness feels pointless. I feel like the point system, which seems to pervade the way we think and structure society and education, is a replacement for a meaningful living. And I think with the giant melange of modern life has created a kind of general malaise of meaninglessness that we are trying to replace with a points gradation system, and that life loses things. It becomes too strained, too filtered, and we lose the essence of it.
I do, but I think that goes back to my point that sometimes you got to take life by the balls and say fuck it. I mean, I've always come onto the theory that, well, you know what, do what the fuck you want to do then. Like, find your purpose. I think for me, I've always loved helping people. I've always loved, like, I started a thing called the Passion Project, which is what it says on the tin. But I would essentially just say, okay, so I've always felt nervous performing, so I'm just going to have a safe space where we all perform and just do our thing. But, like, that was my purpose. I wanted to do that. Like, that was my thing.
Is that the collective?
Yeah, the collective and helping people. I wanted to do that. And I think that was my purpose. And I think it's hard because, like you said, life gets you down. You have to work. You have to do things because capitalism does that. But I think the way that I get out of it is, all right, do what the fuck you want to do. Do what you want to do. Do what, like, I've always just been like, fuck a system, like, do what you want to do, and, like, also just find your purpose. Why do you want to do the things you want to do? Like, why do you want to create this podcast? And it's just do it, and, like,
well, there's this value, there is this value, this whole attitude of like, let's break stuff. That's what rock and roll is, right? Let's smash the guitars, let's create the conflict. As I was saying, I'm very much, let's fuse things, let's bring this peace and everything in its place. But sometimes you need to smash stuff. You need to smash stuff, and this music is so interesting because you come from a classical is all about harmony, beauty, making an otherwise chaotic world make sense. Whereas things like punk and things like, you know, some of the more distorted stuff is actually, let's reflect the essentially disharmonious nature of life, and let's reflect it and rail against the system which seeks to constrain and take away that vivacity.
Exactly. And I think you know what's interesting is that, like, you can find like kind of rebellion in anything, in absolutely anything. You know, there's you know, my favorite artist is Nina Simone, and she did exactly that. She did it.
The last podcast we talked about how much we both love Nina Simone.
There you go. And it's literally like she could be your person of the month, I guess. But she could literally, you know, she made your classical blues song. She did, you know, I Love You, Porgy. You know, she did all that kind of stuff. But then you get, you know, What It Means to Be Free. Then you get Young, Gifted and Black, where she is
the first jazz song I ever learned.
What was
I Wish I Knew How It Felt to Be Free.
There you go. Because she is literally writing in a very classical style. You know, she always wanted to be a classical pianist. But at the same time, she's saying, well, fuck a system, you know. And I think it was when it comes back to writing about music I write, it's very much like, all right, I'm guessing I'm rebelling against my upbringing a little bit. Is in like, I don't dislike classical music, but I think I like to subvert it a lot and see what I can do with it, what I can, how I can kind of move it forward. But I think also I'm rebelling against everything that I've been told I can or can't do. Like, if you said, Anusha, you can't do this in the song, watch me. You know, watch me do it. And that is how I think music becomes more fun that way, when you don't live with kind of restraints and kind of barriers. You know, it becomes more fun with what we
There's
can
that
do.
Idols, the Idols, latest Idols album, I think this is right, it's called Joy as an Act of Rebellion or Resistance. I think it's Joy as an Act of Resistance, which I just absolutely love that, because Idols is, you know, it's well, punk, or it's very, very shouty and angry, but not kind of angry, but it's the epitome of what you're saying, railing against the system. And I think I have a tendency, like yourself, right, with social media, right, I like the system, quote unquote. My attitude is stay out of it. You know, I'm just gonna leave. Like I'm doing my own thing. I'm happy to be a hermit. I'm happy to have my own, like, very small community and create beauty and create art. That's fine. But I think if you want to be part of the system, I don't want to be part of the system. You want to be part of society, which isn't about, you know, can be good. It very much can be a good thing. I don't know what the place for resistance and rebellion is music is. It's not something that I personally have ever written about, but I know that it's something that anthems have always been important to gather people around to create positive change.
You don't necessarily have to be on the front lines enacting change. You don't have, if that's not your strength, you don't have to do that. Abolition comes in so many different ways, where, like, if you're teaching people music, like if you said, okay, I'm going to give 30 minutes of a free lesson online, take it or leave it, you're providing resources to people who don't have it. You're already doing more than the state is doing. That's enacting change. Or if you're going to say, you know what, I'm just going to provide a free concert, everyone come and chill, you know, I just want everyone to get kind of some, like, during a pandemic and everything's really sad, I just want to give a bit of recluse, and that's what you want to do. That's enacting change. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to come in a way of you having to literally be Nina Simone, I'm going to beat you with a bat, you know, which love her for that. But
now I'm imagining Nina Simone with a bat beating some people.
She's already tried to shoot someone. She tried to shoot her producer when he didn't pay her. So, you know, like... I
did not know that.
Yeah, she tried to shoot some because basically this guy didn't pay her enough or something, and she was like, all right, fuck you. She tried to shoot him, missed, and then she left the country. So she, you know, like, you know, love my girl. But, like, you know, you don't have to do that. I mean, it'd be fun, but, you know, like, at the end of the day, I think change comes from the fact that, okay, so what are you doing with yourself? Like, how are you kind of working against the state? And I think that is, I think it gets it becomes down to your own personal beliefs. I think a lot of the time as well, like, what do you see as change and all this kind of stuff, and that's why it gets very mega and big. But for me personally, doing the passion project thing and just having like a list of opportunities that people can just apply to, and giving people space to just make mistakes and not have any requirements. You don't have to come with a backing track. I can help you find one. You don't have to come with whatever. You could literally sit there and sing a song a cappella, sing it out a shoe. That's fine. I ain't gonna judge you. That is what I was doing before the pandemic, and I think that in itself is an action change. Do you know what I mean? That in itself, or even
absolutely,
and even like with you being so honest about your journey, like I think what is it is as well. It's not, you're not sugarcoating it. You're not like, yeah, but if you just work hard and you just do things, you're not kind of trying to give these people a false illusion of, yeah, you just work really hard and just try your best and whatever. You're saying, yeah, some days were fucking tough. I was thinking, I was at peace with dying and things like that. That in itself is an acting change, because not as much as it may be normal for us to, not many people have even heard of that, like would even think of it like that. Do you know what I mean? And even you just opening your story is that like, and it's not even saying that, oh my god, it's going to change the world, but people are understanding where you're coming from, and you've given that new perspective, and you've given that new kind of, and you do it with this podcast, you're giving platforms to musicians who wouldn't normally get platforms. That in itself is an action change. So I think it's actually thinking on a smaller scale, thinking on like, don't think like, oh, okay, I'm going to be the next Malcolm X, so I'm going to be the next Simone. Just think, what are you doing in your own community? And I think sometimes community work is better than, overall world work. Sometimes you could just work within your community, work within the people that you know, and help people who are immediate to you. So yeah, that's literally it, really.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking about ways that we can make change, because that is something that, on the flip side of play, there is a value to play and to helping people to break out of the systems, but there is a more, I guess, meaningful or serious way to create change. And I hope that with this, but I think specifically, like you were saying, with sharing my story, I hope to bring some peace, some clarity through my own experiences. We talked earlier about if my songs become a reflection to my inner condition, that their outer reflection is to reflect the inner condition of others. And I think that death is so fundamental. Death is the point. Right, it's the point that all things absorb to. It's the singularity, which all is the single point that all things are attracted to, right? And in a sense, we create all these artificial death points and deadlines and completion points as a kind of sublimation of that, in a sense, to offset the absolute point, which is to die.
Yeah.
And I think actually, if talking about why is it that we are so obsessed with these artificial points, even though we know they're not real? Why are we trying to grade and level up and get to here and here and here? It's because we're afraid of the actual point. And I think maybe part of the reason that for myself I find it incomprehensible is because I think with feeling less afraid of that point, I'm able to find the point in the pointlessness. I'm finding meaning in the meaninglessness, and I hope that that sharing this stuff, and if I can help people come to more than just come to terms with, celebrate and accept death in their life, that can help to bring some kind of inner quiet and inner peace to the lives of people, and that can emanate outwards into positive social change. I'm not a large scale iconoclast who's going to go and start a revolution, but I can in these quiet ways try and bring an inner evolution. That's my hope.
That's it, and that's all you can do. That's all we can hope for. That's all we can hope for.
This podcast is funded by Arts Council England and Youth Music as part of Making Tracks, a partnership project between Trinity Bristol, Basement Studios and Aspiration Creation Elevation. Thank you to everyone who's made this possible, and thank you for listening.